2, 1, go.
Okay, well, welcome. Again, this is the Harvest Development Group's Do Good Better live streams. My name is Scott Selig, and I'm the Executive or Vice President of Harvest Development. And today we're very fortunate to have Catherine Ashton. Catherine is with Giant Squid Group. I love that name. It's a consulting group. And Catherine is really a fundraising growth coach and speaker based down in Austin, Texas. And her topic today is Your Gala is Canceled, Now What? Which to me is really what I would say a large group of the nonprofits that we work with are dealing with. And it's a great title, and we'd love to just hear a little bit of your thoughts.
Yeah, well,
so
thank you so much,
kick it over to you, Catherine, and then see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And I was just sharing that Giant Squid Group LLC came about when you put 3 20-year-old writers in a dive bar years and years ago, and somehow the name stuck. So here we are, 15 years later with a thriving company. So you never know where life will take you. So your gala is canceled. Now what? I'm really excited to spend the next 30 minutes chatting about that and then answer any questions that might come up. As Scott said, my name is Catherine, and I am based down here in Austin. And Giant Squid Group is an Austin, Texas, and Chicago, Illinois-based fundraising consultancy. So while we have clients all over the country, our headquarters are Austin and Texas, and that's where our consultants are located. And we work with small and startup nonprofits to build their fundraising capacity and knowledge. So typically clients that have under $1 million budget that are really looking at how do we build a grants program, or how do we launch our first really successful fundraisers, or how do we launch our first fundraising event, or take our fundraising event from maybe netting, 10,000 to 25,000 plus. So getting folks over that leap in their fundraising knowledge. And I always joke, no one starts a nonprofit because they love fundraising. You start it because you love the mission. And then here we are all wondering how we're gonna, meet our budgets this year, regardless of what your fiscal year is. So the goal today is to really talk about how we can focus on fundraising during this time. So many of us are experiencing either we had to cancel events or push them back to often next fiscal. So what does that mean between now and the end of your fiscal year? I've seen a really big push to go online, and this sort of came out of, what should we really be doing right now? Let's pause, let's take a breath, and let's really figure out what fundraising means right now. So my goal today is for us to explore how we can stay mission focused to support long-term fundraising success. We're all thinking now. I mean, what we're down here in Austin, we're quarantined through April 30th. That feels like 37 years. I have a 2.5-year-old. So we're all going to come out of this wearier. So the thought of fundraising next year seems so far away, but we do really need to stay focused on not only closing out this fiscal as strong as we can, but setting ourselves up for whatever the future looks like. And then understanding what that's going to look like. What is fundraising going to look like in 2021, 2022? Economic ramifications aside, how are we as a society going to be shifting, and what do you need to be doing to think about that? And out of that, what are the top things you need to be doing right now, not only in terms of immediate fundraising and generating that cash flow you need to continue to pay your staff and keep the doors open, obviously critical, but to maintain your donor base. And this is particularly challenging for folks that are not direct service, right? Our direct service orgs are stepping up in incredible ways, and it's often easier for us to think about emergency appeals if we're talking about food relief, or down here I work with the Austin Diaper Bank. We all need, the kids that still need diapers. Sure. But arts organizations, animal rescues, we need to be thinking about the future. So the first thing, if you're thinking about, crap, our gala got canceled. I have a client right now who is thinking about, they're projecting to net $130,000 at their gala in June. Sponsorships are already drying up. All of these really challenging roadblocks are emerging. So the number one to think about is recommitting to your mission. Like I alluded to, I've seen tons and tons of organizations kicking around ideas like virtual galas. I think we've all been invited to a lot of those, and they can be a lot of fun. Virtual galas, virtual golf outings, virtual this. But the challenge with those is they're marketing campaigns, and they're really challenging marketing campaigns to launch. So unless you know you have the donor base, unless you know you have the marketing team and the resources to try to throw something like that together in a few weeks or a few months, might fall flat, and you might end up really just wasting all those resources. So the number one thing I've been encouraging my clients to do right now is to stay 100% laser focused on your mission and vision, particularly when it comes to your fundraising. And you're going to hear me say that. I'm going to beat that into your brains, because if a virtual golf outing is not mission aligned, why are you doing it? Resist the siren song of just doing what everyone else is doing. Along with that, there's a lot of noise right now. Even in the work we're doing, there's so many webinars, there's so many resources. We're all being invited to them every day, and as valuable as they can be and inspiring and wonderful for us to connect to each other, it can also be a bit overwhelming. So going back to that number one rule, stay mission focused. If you're adding a program, if you're looking at taking your fundraising completely online, make sure that it aligns with your mission, your vision, and of course, what your community wants. And then lastly, as you're thinking about how fundraising really does align with your mission, ask your constituents. That's something that I really encourage, and it always surprises folks, like, oh, I can just call your donors? Absolutely. One, we're all locked at home. We have nothing to do. So please call us. We're so bored. Two, it might surprise you. So I have been really encouraging Giant Squid Group's partners to survey their donor base and their constituent base to see what they need. And I've been really pleasantly surprised by the answers. So for instance, one of my clients in Chicago, oh, sorry, Scott, yes.
One quick question. So what type of tools are some of your clients using to survey their donors?
SurveyMonkey is a great one. Google Forms is a great one as well. If you are on G Suite, it's free. Picking up the phone, if you can make a list of your top 10 major donors or key stakeholders, and just ask them, what they need right now. And I think it can range from being a formal survey, for something through SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, to really just maybe some emails and some phone calls to take the pulse of what's going on. And of course, you all know your donor base, so you'll have a sense of who are those folks that would inform this. So an example is one of our Chicago nonprofit partners works with Chicago public school educators. And like many states, Chicago public schools are closed. So we have all these educators now kind of out to dry, tackling distance learning. So they sent a survey through SurveyMonkey asking, what do you all need? And they sent a survey to their donors as well, saying, what do you want to hear from us? What do you need? How do you want to support us? And I think they were anticipating, and what we were all anticipating was, we need distance learning resources. We need, tools. And the teachers said, we have all that, but we're feeling really lonely, unsupported, and isolated right now. We need to know this community is here for us. And so out of that, instead of trying to launch distance learning programs or engage donors to help make that possible, they ended up taking a step back, going back to that, what is our mission? It's supporting Chicago public school educators, and launching a marketing campaign called Uplift Our Educators, where they're pushing out more support resources than they are tips and tricks and that sort of thing. So they ended up sunsetting the webinar series that they had been planning, and instead started doing community coffee dates, not dissimilar to this. So getting educators on the phone and on Zoom to talk about, gee, this is really hard. This is not what we thought, and providing that that community that way, that comes back to their mission. And it also is what they asked for. So it really did come back to their mission, cut through the noise, and respond to that. And the outpouring from donors was, you're being so kind and nimble and intuitive. And so while of course they're still having challenges and getting to that $130,000 in Gala revenue, they're demonstrating, we are here for our community. We are following through on our mission in a really profound way. So that was really exciting to see. And another example of asking folks what they want, both your constituents and your donors, is the Austin Diaper Bank. I alluded to the fact I volunteer with them, so I always love to talk about them. I'm on their development committee, and they provide immediate need. They provide diapers to families that can't afford them. But what we found was, here in Austin anyway, and I hope you all are experiencing smoother sailing, you can't get diapers, and luckily we're out of them. The shelves are completely empty. So they had this immediate programmatic pivot they needed to to address. So they did that. And I know that Scott and Sandra have probably covered a lot of ways that you can pivot your program. So I won't spend too much time on that. But along with that, they realized similarly, we had to postpone our gala. It was supposed to be next weekend. So we postponed it to September, which is in a new fiscal year. So as they were pivoting their programs, they had two areas they needed to focus on. One, how do we sustain our sponsorships and sustain this momentum from a gala that was supposed to be in April that had to be canceled at the 11th hour since Austin is completely locked down? And two, how do we then fundraise between now and the rest of the year to fill that, $50,000 plus gap in our budget? So going back to those 3 tenets, stay mission focused, ask everyone what you want, and cut through the noise. They started personally updating all the sponsors now, saying, you've either committed your sponsorship or it's already secured. This is how we're going to be using it. Is that okay? So really engaging with the sponsors in a dialogue right now and not taking for granted it will be there, which is particularly important when we're talking about small businesses that are really affected. Second, they started pushing out a lot of really salient community-focused content to their lower level donor base, like video streams like this, live streaming their volunteer days that they're still having with a very limited group of people, including law enforcement, to really celebrate how the community is all coming together. And then third, planning an emergency appeal. So while they said we obviously can't have a gala of 250 people in April, we can still fundraise. So focusing on what that looks like. So that will bring me to what that looks like. How can we fundraise when we cannot come together in person? And if you were relying on that gala, if you were relying on that in-person event, that paddle raise, all of those things to meet your budget this year, what can you do differently? The biggest thing for me is remember why your work matters and articulate that clearly in everything you do. Whether you do choose to have a virtual gala, virtual paddle raise, or whether you choose to have an emergency appeal, peer-to-peer fundraiser, whatever that looks like, make sure that you're talking about why your work matters now more than ever. I've heard a lot, I think we're all fighting it, that I can't fundraise right now, the world's on fire. This is the best time to fundraise because we need you now. We need all of you, whether you're an arts organization or direct relief. We need donors you get on the phone with, and paint a picture of why you need your donors today and what the world would look like today if your work stopped. I know you believe that, or you wouldn't be getting out of bed every morning and giving so much of yourselves. I would be so bored if I didn't have all the art in my life. I would be so bored if I didn't have my rescue animals. These are the things that make life worth living. And as we are navigating this unprecedented pandemic, we need your work. So get really clear on that. And then make sure all of your external communication is focused on that. And this is a pitfall that we see a lot. Do not make your need for support, our hair is on fire and we need cash. That's not a need for support. Come back to why you're doing this work. So in addition to staying really mission focused, another thing I'm encouraging all of Giant Squid Group's partners to do is to write basically a mini COVID-19 case for support. I have some resources on my website that I will share with Scott and Sandra to share about how to do that, because it's changed, right? Your work still matters, your mission and vision still matters, but your immediate day-to-day work has changed. We talked about how some partners have pivoted online. I know we're all seeing that. So come back to why your work matters, why your constituents need you now more than ever, what you're doing to address that in this time of change, and then why you need your donors and what you need from them. You need them to give money, and you need them to give money now. And that does not have to be hat in hand, we need your cash, or something that doesn't feel authentic, but it does need to really drive home that your work needs to continue. And I cannot stress enough, do not say we need your work to keep our doors open. I actually got an email yesterday, and the whole email was about basically we can't meet payroll. And I'm not a donor to that organization. And quite honestly, I was left wondering, okay, when we're all looking at ways to invest in our communities and to make a change, we really need to stay focused on the needs of our constituents, not our own internal needs. So keep that in mind. So a few examples and ways you can articulate that as you're building this base of communication and support to navigate the next few months is proactively communicating with your funders and your potential sponsors. If you have had to postpone your gala, like the Austin Diaper Bank was doing, talk to your sponsors, pick up the phone, have some time with them, have a virtual cup of coffee and hear what they're going through. The answers might surprise you. Don't be shocked, of course, if some of the smaller companies are really struggling. I know down here, I'm seeing our local coffee shop had to lay off all their staff, and that sort of, devastating impact. Not the right time to go ask them for money, but, let them know, hey, we're thinking about you. We know that you probably won't be ready to sponsor us in September, but are there other ways that we can explore supporting you and vice versa? So that proactive communication, again, could be formal. I had one partner, and I'm happy to share the resource externally, put together a beautiful one-pager that said, here's what we're doing, here's why it's important, here's how our programs have pivoted. And they shared that with all of their grant funders, along with personal notes about how the programs are shifting and how it will, of course, impact their reporting. And then with the sponsors as well, looking at their big event in September, calling up sponsors and saying, where do you think you're going to be? And one sponsor actually said, we know things are going to be different. We're lucky to be in a position where we can still sponsor you, but do you need the money now? Can we co-brand some programming with you now? Where do you need it the most? So the biggest thing is, don't make assumptions. People really do want to invest. So that proactive communication, that positive communication, and that taking an opportunity to remind folks of why your work matters really will build confidence in your mission, reiterate your credibility, and invite the whole community, including donors, to get involved, whether it's immediately in your programming or as continuing as funders.
That's great. So have you or any of your nonprofits come across a situation where a donor has said, because of the market and the downward turn in the market, it's really affected their ability to invest? And how are you responding to that?
Luckily, I have not started hearing that yet. I'm sure it's coming. In what I am experiencing, and I'd certainly love to hear if other folks are experiencing similar things or not, is that a lot of large individual donors are kind of just, I think, taking a pulse, right? Trying to figure out what's happening. So I haven't seen a lot of movement from those major donors. I think we're all sort of sitting back, and thinking what is going to happen, or looking at, we want to, immediately invest in direct needs. So I'm sure that's coming, unfortunately. And then I think it really goes back to honoring that, of course, right? As a fundraiser, you never want to bully someone or make them feel bad, but honoring that and then reminding them why their mission matters so much, or why their work matters so much, and how your mission is continuing to be supported by them, so that it gives them the opportunity to step up to the plate in whatever way they can right now, which might not be for a few years. So I think that's, again, where that proactive communication, rather than waiting for them to come to you, or more likely just not make a gift, reach out to them and say, hey, here's what we're doing. We know that this is a really trying time. We would love to have your support continue. What does that look like? And I think that is critical, whether it's an event sponsor, for sure. You should be on the phone with those folks right now, whether your gala is next year or was supposed to be next week. Major donors, anyone who makes a gift that you would consider a major gift, and then foundations as well. So anyone who's investing significant funding, I'd sure love for you to get on the phone and talk through with them how you're staying mission focused and how your needs statement is changing.
And let's talk a little bit about diversifying some of your fundraising.
Yes.
So we talk to our clients, really trying to coach them to focus on multiple income streams and not just one or two, because we know that a situation like this, it really can affect that. How are you working with some of your clients dealing with those type of issues?
I love that question. So number one thing is looking at the low-hanging fruit, right? So for some of my clients, that's actually launching monthly giving programs right now, because folks are asking, how do we get involved? How do we make a difference? Engaging those lower level donors that might have been previously not as engaged, or the folks that you were expecting to come to the gala and say, maybe do $100 paddle raise, $250 paddle raise, proactively reaching out to them and building that relationship through something like a monthly giving program is a really great way to build the bottom of your donor pyramid. So I'm really excited to see some of those launch. Another wonderful initiative some of our clients are tackling is earned revenue. which is a sophisticated, of course, way to diversify funding, but looking at, are there earned revenue programs where they can build more sustainable relationships with local companies and businesses that might want that relationship with them. So one of our clients down here works in mental health, and they do presentations and workshops to companies. And in the past, those had all been free, which was wonderful, but it was putting a lot of pressure on their capacity to continue to provide those. And of course, cutting into the staff time to provide free resources to more underserved populations. So they're rolling that out as an earned revenue program. So those companies will actually invest in the organization to make that possible, which is a really wonderful asset to both the company and the nonprofit. And then thirdly, looking at creative ways to build those relationships with corporations, with foundations, and with local companies. So I have one client that's looking at really rebuilding and relaunching their corporate volunteering program. They are lucky enough to have a program where they do have a lot of hands-on volunteering and a lot of mentoring and a lot of emphasis on their local community. And it's been very ad hoc. So they're taking this time that we all suddenly have for capacity building and looking at what it would look like to formalize when a large corporation or a mid-level business in their community calls and says, hey, we want to have a volunteer day, to structure that into a lunch and learn with an opportunity to learn from their constituents and their leadership for a set amount of money to cover their costs, of course, but then also as a donation. So I think that's really going to help them, again, build that credibility, stay really, really mission focused, but also offer their corporate partners who would have been sponsors something that they really need, which is employee engagement, community engagement. They get to check their corporate social responsibility boxes, and then a really, really fun day and a really profound way of giving back. So those are a few examples of revenue diversification that we're tackling.
And how are you seeing the concept of social distancing affecting some of these opportunities? So you can't have volunteers in place. So yeah, so what are some solutions you're seeing out there?
Yeah, it's challenging, isn't it? I mean, we aren't even going to the grocery store. So that particular example, they are planning on that for, I think, launching in September with, crossing our fingers. So they're using that as this is planning time. This is their capacity building time and planning time. So I think don't underestimate that, right? Hopefully, the next month or so we'll start to be able to come back together and gather. And then the goal is we have these plans and these campaigns that we can roll out. So we're almost leading the way back out into the world, and come together. But I've also seen some organizations find really creative ways to do that. So for example, there's an organization here in the suburb I live in called Backpack Friends, and they fill and distribute backpacks of food to children who are food insecure. Obviously, those are usually done at school, still a huge priority. So they started a program that I just think is the cutest called Netflix and Fill, because they said, usually they have these huge fun packing days and they have music and it's a great way for the community to get together. So what they started doing is dropping off all of the stuff at your doorstep, like your groceries, right? You don't even have to talk to anyone, so that you can, with your family, have your own little mini volunteering party. And I love that. We talked to the Diaper Bank about doing it again. And of course, that's limited to if you have a hands-on volunteering experience, which many of us don't. But if you do, how fun. I'll probably, as a donor, be looking at hosting a little bit of a virtual diaper drive for the Austin Diaper Bank. So having folks drop off diapers at my door, and then my husband and I will, crack a beer and wrap those up and drop them off. And gee, it's certainly not the same as, being down at the warehouse with the staff, but it's a way to stay connected and feel like we are part of the world, which I think right now we all want. So this is where, when I'm coaching clients, it's so fun to think about what we can come up with, because of course, everyone's end result is going to be different depending on your mission. And even if you don't have something like backpacks full of food or diapers, there's probably some way you can bring your work into their home, even if it's via social media or, asking folks to make thank you calls, or you making thank you calls, to just remind people that you exist. And going back to what I said at the beginning, be wary of just throwing all your virtual events online. Ask yourself, or making all your events virtual, why do people come to your parties, your galas? It's because they're fun, hopefully, and because they like you and they want to see your mission continue, which is the basis of good fundraising is relationship building. So when we take the ability to gather away, what's left is how do we build relationships? How do we build those communities online? And my challenge to folks right now is to get really creative in that and to dig deep and think about what that really means to your donor. Because for me anyway, and everyone's mileage varies, I don't particularly want to just sit online and bid on silent auction stuff. I'm doing so much online shopping now. It's like, more focused on groceries and frozen toys for my daughter. But the idea of someone providing me a way to really give back and to take a little break to remind myself of why we do this work every day sates that same need for going to the gala. We have a bottle of champagne in the fridge, and it would be so fun to find a way to do that. So that's where you got to get really creative, get your board together, get your staff together, hop on the phone with Scott or me and let's brainstorm what that looks like for you, what that online community looks like for you. And there's no right answer. That's the really wonderful thing. So a few key takeaways, and then we can have some questions is, did you have something to say, Scott?
I was just say we've got about 5 more minutes.
Perfect.
So,
yeah, so good. The key takeaways. So plan your online events carefully and strategically. Like I said, reiterating, they are marketing campaigns. And the folks who do really good online events are not planning these in 2 weeks. They have to be proactive. They cannot come from a place of, oh my gosh, we have to get our event online. So if you don't feel like you have a large engaged donor base, a really robust mailing list, and the capacity to do that, I would really sit with whether or not that's the right fit for you. Just because everyone is doing it doesn't mean it's going to be the right fit for you. Make sure to stay 100% mission focused. I've said it 37 times, I'll say it again. Everything you do, whether it's an online event, whether it's a marketing campaign, whether it's bringing volunteering into your donors' homes, needs to align with your mission. That is your guiding North Star right now. It's gotten you this far. It will get you through this. Your mission is going to beat COVID-19. Coronavirus is no match for you. And then focus on donor stewardship over anything else. Remember that relationships are the basis of those events, of those fundraising. That's why people show up. And that has not been taken from us. Make sure that your message is really focused on the communities that you serve and not your need for cash. And then last, stick to the fundraising that you know works. Get creative, but come back to what you know your donors have responded to over and over again. Those stories you tell, the programs that you share, that will get you through this. You don't have to start being crazy and inventive and launching the next, ice challenge. Best practices will get you through this. So will creativity.
So we see people trying to mimic that ice challenge.
Yes, I know. And we all want to be the one that comes up with that. And if only it were that easy, right?
Excellent. So how can people get in touch with you if they've got follow-up questions? One is they can come through the Harvest Development or any of the Facebook groups that they're viewing this on, or our website, and we can forward those questions to you. But how can they get to you directly?
Yes, go to giantsquidgroup.com. You can get in contact with me there, or my email is just Catherine@giantsquidgroup.com. I'm pretty sure it's also plastered all over the website. We are offering some pro bono coaching right now, as so many wonderful organizations are. So I would certainly love the opportunity to hop on the phone and brainstorm some ways we can get creative with you all. So please do reach out. And like I said, I've been publishing a lot of this on our blog. So hop over. We just published a pretty robust blog post on how to write that COVID-19 case for support. So we're just, really inspired by how people are stepping up right now and the creative ways that nonprofits are just tackling this head on. And if anyone is going to get us through this, it's going to be the nonprofit industry.
Absolutely. Well, Catherine, it's been a real pleasure. Really enjoyed your talk and all your points. I think they're really right on target. So hopefully, between the work you do and all the others that we've had on, we can be assisting these nonprofits to really make it through this very difficult time.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It was a pleasure to spend some time with you all this morning.
You too. Take care, everybody.
Bye.